What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Lee Hartley podcast. I'm super excited to be back again with you guys. Today, I've got Kevin Kinzer on the show. Kevin's been a longtime friend of mine. I've known him for probably, 6 years now? I say long time, but it seems like much longer.
It's dog years.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, hey, you know how that is. So, Kevin, you are, I met you kind of through the IT department. Turned out you're in the National Guard. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Yes.
You are one of the largest suppressor slinging hustlers in the world right now.
That's true as well.
Okay. And let's see, what else? Tell me some more. What we got?
And was working in contract IT work as well.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay. Yeah, I think one of the first things you were doing when I met you were you were trying to diagnose and fix a Starbucks for someone because I kept complaining that their Wi-Fi was terrible, and I was like, "Hey, Kevin's the guy for you. Call this dude."
Right.
And then you were there like a day later.
Yeah. Funny how that works.
Yeah.
So I do a lot of IT project work, right? So if Starbucks, say, has their corporate office in Seattle, right? They don't want to fly someone to Augusta, Georgia, just to re-terminate a Cat5 cable.
Right.
So they'll call me. Yeah. And I'll go to Starbucks or McDonald's or Whole Foods or whatever business it is and do troubleshooting and repairs and cabling and, diagnose issues for them.
Right. And so, I would imagine like some of these larger IT companies, when they get a call for needing a Cat5 line terminated, they're like, no, we're not coming for one.
Right.
So,
right. It wouldn't be worth their time.
Right.
But
what got you into that kind of work? How long have you been doing that?
I've been doing, wow. You remember cassette players in cars?
Yeah. When they still had ashtrays in the car, too?
When they still had ashtrays and real cigarette lighters.
Mm-hmm.
So I think my first introduction into cabling and repairs and troubleshooting was at 16, 17 years old, right? I was doing cassette tape removals and CD player installations and auxiliary headphone jacks, right, for our creative Zunes and the original iPods.
Right.
So that was 17 years old.
Gotcha.
And I had a speaker box in my car with these blue neon light rings.
Mm-hmm.
And I
remember having some of those.
All right. And so I wanted to add, and there was a controller box that would let you set it to beat with the music or whatever, right?
Right.
And I added some under footwell lighting and added some others and added all this stuff to it and eventually burned it out. And so I open up the box and I found this component that was burnt on it,
mm-hmm.
and I take it into Radio Shack.
Yeah.
If that tells you how long ago it was.
Right.
I go into Radio Shack and I say, I need one of these, except larger. And so that was my first soldering project, was removing that resistor, dropping in a new one.
And then you burnt the rest of it, like the whole board out at that point.
And then it worked. It worked perfectly for years.
Funny story. I had blue lights in one of my cars back in the day. Mm-hmm. And it turned out certain little small towns in South Carolina, not far from here, they really didn't like you having blue lights in your car.
I can see that.
I get pulled over one night about, 1 in the morning. Blue lights. The deputy gives me a warning. He's like, I'm pulling you over for the lights under your car, your side marker lights, and some other light. I'm like, all right, cool. I'll turn them off. Turned them off. He let me go. I went to a friend's house. I leave like 2 hours later. It's 3 a.m. at this point, 3 or 4.
Turns them back on.
No, I didn't. I get pulled over by a different deputy. He runs everything. He comes back. He's like, didn't you get a warning earlier for these lights? I was like, no. I got a warning for this light, and this light, not the one in the back glass that you pulled me over. He didn't say anything about that one. He's like, turn it off. And he actually let me go. So I got pulled over 2 times in one night in a 2-hour time frame and didn't get a ticket from either one of them. And this is right across the bridge. So you know how they like writing tickets for everything there.
Wow. That's exciting.
So the funny part about that story was about 4 months later, turns out it wasn't actually illegal for the lighting, the neon lighting. So there was like a big lawsuit going on from everyone who had got tickets. They were going after the city to try to get reimbursed for the tickets that they paid for something that actually wasn't illegal.
Wow.
Don't know how it ever turned out, but anyway.
Wow. Well, yeah. So, I mean, that thing that it got me interested in electronics, right? Got me interested in communications. And at 17, I joined the Army.
Okay.
And they said, what job do you want? And I said, well, I want something that will be valuable outside of the Army, right? So if you go and you know, do artillery shells, there's not a huge calling for that outside of the military, right? So in communications and IT support, I said, I'll take that. And I went to my first, duty station, my first assignment for training at Fort Gordon.
Okay.
Right. So I flew from Indiana down to Fort Gordon in Augusta and did my AIT. I've been down here for some training and recertification several times before I actually moved to Georgia.
Okay.
And so in 2014, I got a job offer from Mantech, right? It's a defense contractor, and had this systems engineering role down in Augusta. And I picked up and rolled down here specifically for that role.
Right.
And have been doing contract work and IT work ever since.
Okay.
Done camera system installations, done networking.
Yeah, I mean,
there's a camera right there.
Yeah. I think you may have done one or two here, right?
Yeah.
Just one or two.
I've done a few. And so it's exciting stuff. It's varied work. Right. There's always new problems and new potential things to solve. I'd mentioned that $1,000 fuse, right?
Yeah. So tell me about this. Kevin was on the way here, and he's like, "Hey, I got held up a little bit. I needed $1,000 fuse," and I'm like, "The hell is so? What is so important that it's $1,000 fuse that you're dealing with?"
So there's this business in Augusta at the mall. And I won't name the business, but they have this camera system in their office, and they have managed support for it that's in like Colorado or something.
Okay.
And they hired a guy to come in and replace a camera for them because it was not showing a feed, it wasn't working. They said, "Hey, we need you to replace this camera." So he goes in, he's there for 5 hours, replaces the camera with a brand new one, still not working.
Right.
And so they released the guy eventually because they're like, we're sick of paying this dude to not solve the problem.
I mean, 5 hours, you could have ran a few.
Right. So however much that cost, I don't know what their contract was, but the last week they called me and said, "Kevin, we're having issues with this camera. We need you to go check it out." And so I get out there, the camera's already been swapped, and there's no power to it. There's no lights on. I'm like, this is odd.
Right.
And I go backwards, I get to the power supply, and the fuse is blown. Little 3-amp fuse.
Okay.
It's black, and all the others are illuminated, right? So it's
Right.
very clear that this is the issue.
Right.
I pull out the bad fuse. I pull a good fuse from a working camera, swap it down to that,
Works
and it
perfect.
comes up. And they're like, "Holy cow, it's back up. We're up. Oh, but we lost another camera." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know."
It's like, that's going to be a double. Sorry.
That'll be double.
Yeah, you just said fix this one. You didn't say I couldn't ruin those.
Right. And so, obviously my time in doing that, right, was very minimal.
Right.
How long does it take to do that? It was less than 10 minutes
Right.
that I got there, noticed that issue, and saw that bad fuse.
The fact that he didn't check the source before swapping out a camera is just, yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's mind-blowing,
Yeah.
right? And what it really tells you is that, the isolation of the problem is more important.
Right.
You've heard that story about Picasso, and he's sitting alone, and someone comes up and has him do a drawing on a napkin, and he does it in 5 minutes and then hands it to him, and she says, "That's amazing," and then he charges her $20,000 for it, right?
Right.
And she's like, "What, 20,000? It only took you 5 minutes."
Right.
And he says, No, it didn't take me 5 minutes to draw that napkin.
Right.
It took me 20 years of experience.
Right.
And that's what you're paid for. Very often there are people that are paid for something they're doing, right? If you're flipping burgers, or if you're delivering mail, or if you're doing a task,
Right.
and you're paid hourly, you're paid for the time that elapses while you're doing that position. And it's very different when you're paid based on results,
Right.
right? If you're paid based on flat rate job completion. Hey, we need you to fix this camera. Here's $200 to fix the camera,
Right.
however long that takes. And if it takes me 5 minutes to solve it versus taking 5 hours to solve it, it's definitely more profitable.
Right.
And so that experience then is what drives what's really driving the success of the business.
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah, it's kind of similar with what we do. I mean, we don't talk about it a lot on here, but we're, a real estate brokerage as well. And I've had clients that, they love me by the end of it, period. But I've got one in particular that I remember. They were selling the home on their own, or trying to, and they had it listed for, I think, a month and a half, somewhere around there. And everything else around it was selling, but their house wasn't moving.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to them. We came to an agreement. I actually ended up putting it on the market. And within, I think, 24 hours, we had 4 offers on it. Listed at more than what they had it for.
Right.
So this person in particular comes back to me and she's like, hey, I think you should give me a discount on the commission that we agreed to because you got it done so quickly. I was like, actually, you should probably pay me a little more because I got it done so quickly.
Right.
Because I just gave you the results that you couldn't get in a month and a half. And it wasn't like it was a joke and we got along and, everything was good. But it does kind of point out it's not just the job itself, it's the value that you bring and the know-how and everything. Exactly like you were saying.
Right.
It applies to every field.
Yeah, I did it in 24 hours because I had the experience doing it.
Right.
I have
and the access to what makes it happen. Right.
I have the people and the processes in place to do that.
Right. Not to mention to avoid all the hiccups along the way.
Right.
So
that's awesome, man.
Yeah. So, all right. So you Indiana led to here.
Yeah.
Anything before that?
I grew up in northern Indiana and joined the Army up there. My first job out of college, I was working at ITT Systems, right? ITT Engineering. They do the radios for the Army.
Okay.
Right. And so I did that for several years and I traveled with them.
That's fun.
And my last several roles have been traveling and field support. And in moving to Georgia, I worked with Mantech for 5 years.
Okay.
And then I worked a couple other different roles doing security work and IT work, systems engineering work out at Fort Gordon. And about 3 years ago, I started working with a suppressor manufacturer.
How long 3 years, how long did you talk to them before you guys kind of got going with an agreement to where, was it originally like the position that you're in right now, was that the original talk or?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. It was originally an investment, actually.
Okay.
Right? I invested into the business. Part of that investment was a couple suppressors.
Okay.
And so naturally I got to figure out which ones I want, right? So I flew up to Michigan.
That's the fun part, right?
Right. I flew up to Michigan and met with their team, decided on a couple different suppressors that I wanted, and I got a dedicated 9mm suppressor for PCCs and pistols.
Okay.
And then I got one for 223 for AR-15. And towards the end of that event, I reach out to them. One of their team members says, hey, you should really consider a sales role with us.
Right.
And I said, I don't do any sales. I'm not interested. I do IT work, engineering. I'm not a sales guy, so I'm not interested in that.
Okay.
And then the suppressors then transferred to my FFL down here in Georgia.
Right.
And he asked me a second time, right? My advisor did, my financial advisor. He said, hey, you should really consider this sales role with GSL. I'm like, no, dude, I'm not interested in that.
Right.
And I shut it down a couple times. And the third time he asked me, another couple months later, I was like, okay, fine. Send me the case.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
Okay.
And I can't do something halfway. And so it got here, and I had this suppressor case with 8 or 10 different models. And I started looking into it and started getting into the engineering and getting into the materials and just dove in really hard.
Yeah, see, I feel like if I was placed in that position, my first thing would have been, hey, can you send me a bunch of ammo too? We're going to play.
Right. No, it's not playing. It's very interesting stuff.
Okay.
I really enjoy it. I travel with them. I do sales for them now. And I found out that I could leverage a lot of my IT background into sales.
How so?
Creating processes, creating repeatable actions, right? Being in front of our target audience, right? YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and MeWe and Instagram and all that garbage is part of it, right? But there's also content creation, right? And providing value to dealers and law enforcement agencies and to the individual customers. And so it's everything wrapped up, you know? Yeah, fascinating stuff.
Gotcha. So you mentioned content and things of that nature, and traveling. So, I mean, where has it taken you so far? What different places have you gotten to see for events or
This year?
special experiences or anything, you know?
I've been to SHOT Show the last couple of years.
Okay.
Right. A lot of people outside of the industry don't even know what that is.
Right.
But SHOT Show is held in Las Vegas every year in January. And it's all of the main vendors, right?
Okay.
Like Remington and, you know, all of your suppressor manufacturers and all of your firearms and ammo and, you know, equipment companies meet there in Vegas at the convention center. And it's just a massive networking event, right? It's not really a gun show,
Right.
right? To say gun show is not accurate because it's not targeting individual customers.
Right.
The only people that are there are
More like brand
FFLs.
recognition and
Yeah. People that are there are media, FFL dealers, and law enforcement agencies,
okay.
right? You can't just walk off the street into this event.
Right.
And so SHOT Show has been a really big one, right? We have that coming up the second week of January, and we've got a booth up on the 5th floor.
Where's it being held?
It's at the Sands Expo Center,
Okay.
Venetian in Las Vegas. And so that'll be really cool. I also go to NRA, right? The NRA annual meeting that was in Houston this year. And we saw the protesters screaming across the street. It was so funny. So funny. And I went to Pennsylvania for a week, did a trip up there in the Pocono Raceway.
Okay.
And got in front of a great group of our target audience there. And then I drove to Kansas, right? And was out at TriggerCon. It was hosted by Rainier Arms. And again, it was a networking event. You know, it was a shooting event. They had a live fire ranges and demos and new product releases there. You know, I met with the Trailblazer team on the Life Card, and they actually have a threaded barrel 22 caliber. Have you ever seen the Life Card before? It's wicked.
Yeah.
Cool weapon. And so I'll have one of those shortly. I'm going to do some video reviews on and content. That'll be cool.
Oh yeah, you were actually telling me a while back you had a kind of a personal goal, but also a company goal that was going to lead to like a payoff for you, like an award kind of thing. What was that? Remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do. Last year, so my first year with GSL, I had a target, right? I wanted to have a goal, right? What's the target?
So, and before you even mention any of this started out as just a side hustle, a fun thing to do, something you were passionate about and enjoyed.
Yeah.
But
Because I was still doing the IT work, the
Right.
contract work. I was still working at Fort Gordon, and this was a side hustle.
Yeah.
Side hustle was doing suppressors, and I scaled it up progressively, incrementally, and it's been absolutely phenomenal. You know. So my goal in that first year, I went to them and I found out, I said, what is your top selling guy last year? What did he do in sales? Right. And they said 200,000. Our top guy, the guy who does 40 hours a week, that works here in the office, travels, he did $200,000 last year.
Right.
And I said, okay, so if I'm doing this in the evenings and weekends, sometimes part-time, what would be a good goal for me? You know, like 60 grand, 50 grand, 60 grand. And they said, if you do 60 grand, we will be freaking impressed. I'm like, okay, cool.
Set
60
the bar.
grand.
Set the bar.
That's where the bar's set.
Right. Okay.
And it seemed like, you know, a pretty solid goal. It's
Right.
$5 grand a month, you know.
Yeah.
Seemed okay. But I did 60,000 in sales in January.
Okay.
And so
So you might have been in it a little deeper than you thought you were.
We decided we needed to reevaluate where the bar was.
Right.
I said, this is not going to work, clearly,
Yeah.
because I'm going to outsell this guy just based on.
Can't imagine that was a goal.
All right. It wasn't the goal. The goal wasn't to outsell that guy. It was to outsell myself,
Okay.
you know?
The hell was that?
Oh, dear. It was a phone.
Okay.
And so
Man.
the goal was, gremlins. The goal was then to outsell myself,
Okay.
right? So I hit that 60 grand in January, and we reevaluated where the goalpost should have been. You know, I approached the owner of the company and I said, hey,
And this is first year.
this is the first year. And I said, hey, I would love an MP5, right? It's my dream gun. And then they have like 6 of them at GSL. I said, I would love one of those. Send it down to me and I can demo it. I can show it off. We have 6 different suppressors that we can put on and off of that weapon. And it would have been awesome. And he said, oh, no. He said, if you sell $500,000 this year, I'll get you your own MP5. And I was like, all right.
That sounds reasonable.
Game on.
Yeah. 60 grand the first month, and you want me to do $500,000, huh?
$500,000.
And this is right after Christmas when you did the 60. So
Yeah. And so then $500,000 was the goal.
okay.
Mind you, that's, 4 times what their best guy had ever done.
Right.
So that's pretty crazy.
And they're like, nah. I mean, yeah, we're not giving him a gun.
Right. That's what they thought.
Yeah.
That's what I think that was the intent.
Especially being that you're not a sales guy.
Right.
You wanted nothing to do with sales.
Initially. Now I love it. And so that was the goal, was $500,000 for 2020, 2021. Okay. Shoot, I don't even remember. That was 2020.
Okay.
So I hit $500,000 in November. And then I did another 250,000 in December. So I ended the year at 765, I think.
Okay.
Which is awesome, right? Met my goal. But I don't say that to brag about that number. That's cool, $500,000, $700,000 in sales. That's great.
Right.
For my first real full year doing it. The really cool thing is that I was still doing that full-time DoD contract role 40 hours a week also. And so it makes it more significant. The biggest piece of that story, though, is where do you set that goalpost?
Right.
Right? If you do yourself a disservice by setting the bar so low,
Right.
right? We didn't even know where to set that bar.
You just knew in January the 60 grand one wasn't it.
It wasn't it. So did that, got the MP5. That's awesome. Then this year, the goal was $1 million, right? So if I could double my best year.
What is this?
It is the Glenlivet single malt Scotch whiskey.
I can't even remember the last time I had anything on the rocks.
What about one giant rock?
True. All right. So you had the goal. You hit 750. That was the first year.
Yep.
Did they follow through? They make good on their offer?
They did.
Okay.
They did.
So going into that following year, what was the goal for that following year?
Well, the next year, 2022, now that we're in, right? 2021, 2022 is, to hit $1 million.
Okay.
Right? And what is it right now? It's December, right?
Mm-hmm.
I hit $1 million in right before Halloween.
Nice.
So a month and a half ago.
Gotcha. So it sounds like everything's been growing just incrementally, like just nonstop.
Yeah. So, I mean,
How's the other sales guys doing?
the next highest sales guy in our company does around 150,000, I think.
Gotcha.
And then the next highest guy is maybe around 70.
I mean, are they traveling the way that you are, though, for this?
No, nobody does like I do.
Gotcha.
So I committed to it full time. Right. January of this year, the defense contract that I was working on ended. And rather than compete for the new job with the new company, I just scaled up the work that I do with GSL.
Gotcha.
And have been doing that full time since January of this year. And I did that Pennsylvania trip, the Kansas trip. I just took one to Florida a couple weeks ago and went to the Suppressed Fest, the NFA Review Channel's suppressed only shooting event down there. It was awesome. All right, we had some great engagement, some great content. It was amazing.
Gotcha. How's social media going for you with all of it? I mean, you've been dabbling with that.
It's good. My accounts perpetually say restricted. You know, we're blocking your content.
Yeah, they don't.
We're not posting your content.
It seems like it depends on who you are if you can post that or not. But I feel like, you know, as the name grows and the brand grows and everything, you guys will get to the point where they kind of stop filtering that out. Don't you think?
Maybe. I think it's the reverse sometimes. I think guys that are really, really big automatically have their stuff censored. Guys that are smaller don't see that censorship until they get the following.
Until they get to that point.
Until they get that major following, you know?
That
so
makes
it's
sense.
kind of the reverse.
Gotcha.
When they're like, hey, wait a minute, this guy just had 50,000 views and they showed a firearm. We can't have that.
Gotcha.
So,
yeah.
And it's pretty interesting.
What do you, what's this we got over here?
I brought a little bit of everything with me today. Right?
Okay.
I've got all of the weapons that I brought with me are unloaded. I didn't bring any ammunition at all. Just so you know, YouTube, Facebook, whatever.
Yeah, don't censor us.
This is my daily carry weapon. Right, it's a 320.
Just
right?
like that?
Compact, yes. And I've got the GSL Trinity SS suppressor on there.
Okay.
Right, it's lightweight, developed for 9mm, and is wicked cool. It allows the weapon to cycle properly, gives you a great daily carry, you know, truck gun, carry gun, and I like that. This guy I brought with me is the Tittman M422. This is probably one of my top favorite weapons in my arsenal. Right?
Is that another one of those you carry everywhere with you?
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. So this one is actually called the bug out model. It folds down, and then
you literally throw this in a book bag.
Yes, the suppressor pops off.
Quick release as well.
Yes. So this suppressor is the GSL Tomcat suppressor for 22.
Okay.
It's quick disconnect. It includes that flash hider. Right? The can drops on there, and then you push down and rotate a quarter turn, and it locks on the weapon really easily. It's rated for full auto, sustained fire. Right. It's a larger form factor so that it looks accurate on the M4 platform, but it's pretty cool.
So with like the quick release thing, I know some suppressors, they have like the crush washers or the, you know, is it kind of like this?
Yep, the retention systems.
Right.
Yeah. So suppressors, I mean, there's quick disconnect and direct thread suppressors.
Okay.
There's some that you can take the flash hider off and then thread the can directly on there. This one's quick disconnect. It allows me to get the can on and off easily.
Right.
And, you know, it's personal preference more than anything.
Now, is there a difference in the quality of sound suppression you would get between a quick disconnect like that and one that would be threaded?
Honestly, I thought the direct thread would be the best sound reduction.
Right.
Turns out it's not. And the reason why is because with this quick disconnect method, there's some area where gas can escape around that flash hider.
Gotcha.
And every
instead
time
of having to dissipate through the...
Yes.
Okay.
And so with a quick disconnect can, we actually see better sound reduction ratings than with a direct thread can where everything is forced to go forward.
Right.
This allows a little bit of gas to escape out the back of the flash hider, and that actually gives you slightly better sound reduction.
Now, I wonder if the velocity changes a little. It's probably negligible, even if it does.
No, the only velocity changes you see with a suppressor are at really long ranges, right? You might see a slight increase in velocity because you've got more time for the powder to burn off.
Right.
So your bullet's going to go faster. So it's pretty exciting stuff. So those are a couple. I mean, GSL has over 40 different models in our product line. And I'm not gonna,
just 40?
40, 41, 42. I'm not going to get into all of them, but
okay.
I do have a few of them with me. I brought this guy, the smallest one in the world. It's 22.
This is not a suppressor.
That is a suppressor. It's its own tax stamp, its own NFA item. I've got another one on my keys. And so that's for 22 caliber. It's been really popular for the Beretta Bobcat, the Life Guard, some of your small 22s.
What the hell?
I know. It does around 25 decibels of reduction.
Really?
Yep. It's kind of exciting. Has a little medical logo on the back of it. I've taken it with me. I've traveled with it and carried it for the last couple of years.
Anyone at airports ever ask you about it?
No. I've got a photo of it inside of like the Delta terminal, you know, with my keys. I mean, it's not a big deal.
I'll actually have to pull that. We'll throw it over.
Throw it over. Put it on the video, you know, no big deal.
Man, you got a whole case down there.
Yeah, I brought them all. Have those. I've got suppressors for 9
I mean, you
millimeter.
can throw the case up here if you want.
The whole case?
Yeah, just throw the whole case.
All right, here we go.
Hey, let's see if you can pull up his YouTube channel. So. Drag that. Yeah. Man. I got to get rid of that mechanical keyboard for in here.
I know.
No kidding. Kinzer, K-I-N-Z.
So yeah, then you can just drag it over onto the.
Right to the other.
There it is. Boom. All right. How does that? I'll close the case.
Yeah, yeah,
Talk about it for a minute.
yeah. So what's your most favorite one in here,
All right, so here's my case.
other than the pillbox?
Behold my stuff. My favorite suppressor. That is a tough call. It's like choosing a favorite child.
I feel like it's going to be this one just because it's actually marred and used.
That one's very used. That one lived on a machine gun, right, very recently for like 10 hours, just
beating it.
firing all day long.
Really?
Yeah, it was crazy.
No
That's
failures, no
Not a
problems.
bit. Not a bit. You can see some marring on there where they had it on and off of the table.
Right. How
Not
many rounds are these? What's the life expectancy
So
of them?
a suppressor will outlive you, right? It'll outlive your children.
Okay.
Right? A quality suppressor will outlive your children's children. You know, I talked to a guy this morning that had one of these suppressors that we built back in the 90s. Okay. And he said he had 500,000 rounds through it already.
Okay.
This suppressor is made with titanium and Inconel.
Okay.
It's full auto rated, and I mean, is absolutely badass. Right, that's probably our top selling suppressor.
Okay.
It's called our multi-cal, and it's rated for 22s up to 300 Win Mag. So you can shoot your 30 cal, your 308s, your 300 blackout, your 300 Win Mag, and your 223s through that same suppressor.
Gotcha.
Right, suppressors are not tied to a specific weapon. They're tied to the calibers and the pressures that they can actually take. So something like this guy is rated up to 338 Lapua.
Okay.
And then conversely, here's our little baby suppressor. Little
Yeah,
baby-
not much
baby
of a size
22.
difference there. I mean, they're all pretty close. Right?
This is you. This is the guy she told you not to worry about.
Yeah. Exactly.
So that's pretty cool. My favorite suppressor is a very tough call. Right, I think the Tomcat's probably my favorite that I showed you on that M422.
Okay.
That's great for plinking, backyard shooting, just awesome. So
I mean, the great thing for you is you get to walk around with this case everywhere you go, so you don't
shoot 'em
really
all.
have to choose.
shoot them all.
You don't have to choose. Mine,
So-
like my favorite one, is just the whole case.
Right.
Gotcha.
The Tomcat's probably my favorite. So it's exciting stuff. You know, there's a few of them. I do a lot of videos. Right. A a lot of creation of, information on the different models.
Right.
I've got breakdown videos that show, cleaning and documentation and how to get suppressors on and off on my YouTube channel.
Gotcha.
And there it is.
Yeah. So you can actually find him at youtube.com/I am Kevin Kinzer.
I am Kevin Kinzer. That's me. And so there you can see I've got some videos on our direct thread mounting system, our bi-lock quick disconnect. There's some on the 9mm. I did this video right here in the center, all the GSL 9mm suppressors that shows all of the different models, right? We build 12 different models specifically for 9mm.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that breakdown video to show
Go ahead and click on that
the different
video.
components. And there you can see it.
I hit dismiss on that.
All right,
There we
ladies
go.
and gentlemen,
So
welcome
here you can
back.
see,
Today
all
we're going
the
to be
sound.
talking about every single
Here you can see all the
9mm
different pistol
suppressor that
cans
GSL
right,
has
on the
in
far
our
right
product line.
side. I've got some in the middle for PCCs and for your machine guns and a lot of the 9mm
All
platforms
right, so
that
let's
are
get
out
into
there.
it.
Gotcha.
In the GSL product line, we have
yeah, I mean, it's exciting
ton
stuff.
of options, right? We build over
Yeah, I mean,
40
there's
different
worse ways
models
to
in
spend
current
your
production.
time on your
And
side
here you'll
hustle,
see
which has
2,
become a
4,
full-time living.
6, 7, 8,
So-
9, 10, 11
Cool.
models
You
that are
can-
available. 9mm
Yep.
for GSL
But that shows some of
products.
them, and it shows some
Okay.
of the content.
The first of which
on,
I'll talk about
on
here
YouTube.
is the
Gotcha.
Boss 9mm suppressor. This is a wipe suppressor. Stands for bail out suppressor system. 9mm. All right, it uses some shoot through wipes.
Yep. And
So you
then-
said this originally started out as an investment for you. You are somewhat, I mean, you are an investor as well, outside of just that. I mean, how long have you been fascinated with just investing not only time, but money into other projects?
well,
What was your first investment ever?
That's tough. I think my very first major investment was like an angel investing project with a guy who wanted to build a food truck. Right? He's a chef. He came to us with a business plan, and he had already gotten written approval to go to these hospitals
Right.
and have lunch there and serve lunch. And so we built out a food truck for him up in Michigan.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, we had it wrapped. We did, the
Now,
entire
was that like
project.
an initial investment, one-time thing, or was it like an ongoing thing for like profits and proceeds and everything that?
It was an interest-only loan.
Okay,
right?
gotcha.
Interest-only loan. And so we got him up off the ground, and then he, developed that business with this food truck traveling and catering and everything. And it was really great. And we got it established for him, and then once he had the business established, then he could go through a conventional loan and get his like a small business loan from his bank
Gotcha.
and
Gotcha.
refinanced it.
What is your most prized investment that you've made so far to date, as far as like most rewarding for you
Oh, the
that you can
GSL
think of?
one.
The GSL one?
The investment? No, actually, that's second. The biggest investment that you can make is into yourself.
Okay, gotcha.
Self-development, right? So every time you learn, every time you are, reading new books and new podcasts and new information and getting outside perspective,
Right.
that's a greater investment, right? That pays off. There's no one that can take away your experiences,
Right.
That can take away the development that you put into yourself. Can't be taken from you. And so that's the greatest investment.
Gotcha.
GSL was my second greatest investment.
So when you're on the road, you're going to these different places. Are you listening to the radio? Are you listening to a podcast
I haven't listened to the radio in years.
at all?
No, I don't think the radio in my vehicle works.
Okay.
I do listen to podcasts, right? I tie my Spotify straight to the stereo system in the car, and that's my radio channel is like the 87.9 or whatever I'm transmitting through Bluetooth.
Right.
And so that's what I do. I spend a lot of time in my mobile office as I'm traveling,
Right.
making sales calls and linking up with new dealers and customers and providing support and, wherever I'm at.
Cool.
So,
Cool. What's your go-to podcast right now?
My favorite one right now is called 300 to 3000.
Okay.
Okay. And it's about a company out of Birmingham that was growing their property management business.
Right.
Strange as that sounds, right? It doesn't sound like that would have much to do with sales or suppressors, but it does because it deals with people, right? And as you're scaling a business from 300 units to 3,000 units, they're well over 5,000 now.
Right.
But as they scale that business, every time you scale a business, you run into new problems, right? Having 100 employees, you run into new problems that you didn't have when you had 5 employees.
Right.
Right. Or, multiple locations, whatever it is. And so this 300 to 3,000 podcast is fascinating. It's worth checking out.
Okay. How is that, the things that you've learned from there with the suppressor deal, how is that helping you grow for yourself?
So there are things in there that are transferable to every industry, right? There's a lot of leadership skills in there. There's a lot of development of relationships, right? Content creation. There's a lot of little nuggets of wisdom that are inside of that podcast that are not directly tied to property management. You know what I mean?
Right, for sure.
So that's cool.
Just business and communication in general for
Business,
growth, with the
marketing.
intent to grow.
Yeah, marketing, just their mindset.
Right.
They had this full mindset going into it of how do we do this better? How do we scale this business correctly? So
Gotcha.
that's fascinating. And there's a second one I listen to very often. It's called the Craig Groeschel Leadership Podcast. And that guy, have you ever heard of the U Version Bible app?
No.
Is the most popular Bible app on Android or Google Play Store. And it was developed by this church, right, called Life Church. And they do remote, how do I say this? They do remote services. Like they'll have one guy preaching and it goes out and then broadcast to all these churches that are all watching him on,
Like within their own network.
Yeah, within their own network. And so it's fascinating. But then they also developed that app, and part of that podcast, shows you how to evaluate people, right? How to, just fascinating stuff.
Cool.
Leadership podcast, how to be a better leader.
Gotcha.
So,
well, as far as GSL goes for you going into 2023, what's the goal? How do you continue the path that you're on and just continue growing and increasing when you've already been reaching out to so many people and changing so many people's lives along the way with your product? What is the plan to take it to the next step?
Well, it's exponential growth.
Okay.
Right. So, I mean, if you do a really great job for 5 people and then all of those 5 people tell one person, right, the next year, I mean, it's exponential.
Right.
So getting from 500,000 to 1 million was not an issue at all.
And this is something that's repeatable easily.
Exactly.
I mean, because you're selling directly to the people that are going to sell to the public.
Correct.
So, I mean, you might get 5 orders, and that following year that becomes 50,
right,
or 500 from that same person.
Yep.
So,
and the beauty that I found with those videos and that content creation is that I could have a conversation one time, right, cover everything I need to know about this specific model,
right,
and then broadcast that, right, and then,
someone has a question, you just you
fire
direct
that
them to
video
that.
off. Yeah,
Right.
and you have an issue, question with that Tomcat suppressor. Here's the video,
Right.
and I've done a lot of like tabletop videos where I'm explaining the components of it, the capabilities, the features of it. And then once I've recorded that one time, I can then have that same conversation another 1,000 times with
Right.
other people.
Yeah, for sure.
So
do you have a number goal for 2023?
No.
No?
2 million.
2 million? Okay.
Yeah. Double again.
Double it. I feel like by 2025, it will be around that 10 million mark or more.
Yeah. The goal for the next 5 years is $10 million
Okay.
for our company. And so we're getting some new people in place to help make that happen.
Trying to,
Right.
all right. So an MP5 was to pay off for $500,000. I'm trying to figure out what the $10 million goal is for the hey, thank you for 10 million, right?
Right.
No, I mean, I feel like for you, it's just kind of the journey along the way with it.
The journey is the goal, you know?
Now-
The sales just happen as a byproduct of the same actions. Right. I'm doing exactly the same thing that I did with those first 60,000 in sales. I'm presenting the product, right? Here's the specifics. Here's the stats. Here's the photos and content and videos and all of this.
And you're doing it consistently.
Yes.
Which, just like anything else, especially social media, something that I fail to do regularly is just being consistent with it.
Right.
I mean, I follow you on different platforms, and I know you are literally every single week in a different city somewhere. It's just like, I don't know where you're going to be, but I know it won't be here.
Well, you know, I enjoy what I do. Right. And I just enjoy it in front of others.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, is there anything else you can think of right now?
I guess we haven't got much into the Army, right? I'm still in the National Guard.
For sure.
Right? I've been in the Army for...
I keep forgetting, like, you are still active with that because you're
that's
doing this so often.
Here's my other hat,
Oh, okay.
right? I got multiple hats.
Right.
Brought both of them with me. My Army hat, right? I've been in the National Guard since 2005, and I deployed to Iraq with them. I've been to Kuwait, to, you know, been into the desert and still have some sand in my equipment, I'm sure. And I do communications work for the Army. Still. Right? And I enjoy that. And last week, I got a call from our readiness NCO saying that they had slated me for an E8 role, a first sergeant position.
Okay.
And so that would be a promotion, obviously, a transfer to a different unit. And I'm really, really excited about that. So this weekend I've got drill.
Now, does that change your time commitment at all, or
No.
that all remains the same?
No. I've been in 17 years now, and so this will push me through, you know,
To your 20-year mark
20
or
years.
past 20 years?
Yeah. I'll be in probably 22 years, I think, when I finish this contract.
Okay.
And then I'm good.
And will that keep you here still local, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That promotion is in Atlanta, I believe.
Gotcha.
So I'll find out some more information on it, but I'm stoked for that. It'll be great.
Yeah, I'm sure. Always
It'll be
nice to
good.
hear, hey, we're gonna give you a little bit more control, but we're also gonna give you some more money too.
Right. More responsibility.
More responsibility, yeah.
For a lot of people's lives, you know?
Right.
So that's...
Which in turn helps with every other aspect of your life anyway, because it all, like the podcast we were talking about, it all transfers.
Yeah.
So
Pretty exciting stuff. So, yeah, I mean, that communication support, that IT work, everything just wrapped up in this giant ball, you know?
right.
Keeps me pretty busy.
Well, I know you're gonna do a ton in the coming years for sure. Glad to be a part of it, be a friend of yours.
Hell yeah, man.
Yeah, glad to sit here and have drinks with you.
Good fun.
We'll definitely have to get together and I'll come watch you shoot something somewhere quietly.
Oh, yeah.
But well, cool, man. I really can't think of anything else that we haven't discussed.
All right. Have a great day.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for coming on. Look forward to the next one, and we'll see you guys in the next video.
Bam. Out.